Are you tired of playing the same format over and over again? Or maybe you want to introduce someone new to the Pokemon TCG? Or you just want to play with a younger crowd? Today I'm going to be talking about alternative ways to play the Pokemon TCG here on Jank Play TCG. My name is Landon and here we play Jank. So I found this booklet on the Pokemon website about alternative play for the Pokemon TCG. I've gone through the beginner formats, which sound like they're a real great way to introduce people to just Pokemon cards in general, to intermediate formats here, which are more about ways to play the game and changing it slightly. Might make it easier, might make it more fun, different ways like that. Today we're going to be talking about the advanced formats, and these ones get a little crazy. So, one of them I am going to skip, because it's the Gym Leader Challenge. If you have not heard of the Gym Leader Challenge, Andrew Mahone at Tricky Gym has really spearheaded this format. I highly recommend you just jump over to Tricky Gym now and find his Gym Leader Challenge videos. Find the website for Gym Leader Challenge. It is such a fun format. I highly recommend people check it out. I wish I could play it on PTCGL, but it doesn't seem like you can because it doesn't go back far enough for all the cards that are in the Gym Leader format currently. They're still working on that. So if you've got the Pokemon Trading Card Game Online app, you can play Gym Leader Challenge with other people. There's a Discord, all that stuff. Not going to spend too much time on it. It's already there. Go find the information. It's out there. It's a fun time. So let's jump on down to advanced formats. Gonna scroll for a while. There we go. Advanced formats. And now this first format is something that I have wanted that I didn't know existed for a long time. It's a team format. It's a 2 versus 2 team format, and it deals with lanes. And if you've played like a MOBA, like League of Legends or Pokemon Unite, you're going to understand how lanes kind of work. People play in different lanes, and things can only interact with each other in certain lanes. So let's get into the details here. First off, this is a competitive format, definitely, and it's 2 teams of 2, and it can take 60 to 90 minutes according to this fancy chart. And I think this setup here explains a lot. This booklet will be linked in the description, so if you don't have to pause the video and be reading the text on the screen, you can just go download the booklet yourself, but I want to give you a rundown here. So it's 2 teams of 2. So this is one team's side that we're seeing. Player A, center lane, and player B. Now, some of the first things that you will see is center lane does not have a deck. A is where we are looking for a deck, and B would be discard pile. Center lane does not have that. Player A and player B do. Player A and player B, for the most part, play a standard game of Pokemon, except they have more attack targets, I believe. Yeah. Maybe. Oh man, I'm confusing myself here. So, let's just get into this. All players must agree on what format, standard, expanded, unlimited, etc. they want to play. All players must sleeve their decks. Each player should use a different sleeve design, so it's easy to tell whose deck is whose. That is mostly because of the center lane. Player A and player B can both play cards into that center lane, but when cards are discarded from that center lane, they go to the card owner. It does not matter who's the last played in that or anything like that. You can both attach energy to the Pokemon in center lane, and center lane is really where you get those combo moves going off and can really do a lot. So, very interesting use of center lane there, and highly recommend sleeving differently than your teammate, but as well as your opponents as well. So you're going to need 4 different designs of sleeves for this, one for each player sort of thing. 2 teams of 2 and whatnot. And the fun thing about this team format is then you can swap teammates and play again to see how different that is. Each player One player from each team rolls a die to determine which team goes first. Players draw 7 cards from their respective decks and proceed to set up Pokemon in their own player lane. No Pokemon will be set up in the center lane. So you start off basically playing a normal game of Pokemon. You'll even separate out 6 prizes. However, 3 prizes will go to player A. Or for player A, 3 prizes will stay in their lane, and 3 prizes will go in center lane. For player B, 3 prizes will stay on their side, and 3 prizes will go onto center lane there. So it's going to be important to get through center lane. To win this format, you have to take 9 prize cards. So that would be 1 from one player and the 2 from the 2 sets from center lane, or maybe a combination of a couple from here, a couple from here, a couple from here, and then you win, sort of business. So you're looking to get 9 of the 12 prize cards, but some of these prize cards, most of the prize cards, are going to be laying in center lane. So it's going to make center lane very important, even though you can't set up there. When you set up the field, like at the beginning of a game, you can only set up on your side. So that's very interesting to me. Players are considered to have a total number of prize cards equal to the number remaining from the 6 they started with. So if there are any cards that interact with the number of prize cards remaining sort of business, it's only dependent on how many they started with. The standard 6, 3 here, 3 in center lane. It doesn't get nuts. You don't add your teammates. So, we have 8 prize cards missing. I'm going to do this crazy thing that's impossible and all that stuff. Gameplay. The game follows all of the rules of a regular game of Pokemon TCG with the following rules changes. The turn. All phases of the turn are performed simultaneously, so you and your teammate are playing at the same time, which I think is very interesting because you can run into those situations of like, oh, hey, I can attach an energy here. Oh, I can attach an energy to that center lane too, and you power up the Pokemon pretty fast. Both team members resolve special conditions at the same time, draw at the same time, attack at the same time. Attacking's the big one, and take prize cards at the same time. So all phases are done at the same time, if that makes any sense. The lanes. Any cards played with will only be able to affect the lane they are played in. That means any cards played in the player's lane are only able to affect the player and the opponent directly across from them. So it's going to be very limiting in how you can interact. You can play boss's orders on a different lane to boss up a Pokemon in that lane, but you can't play boss's orders in your lane and then gust up something in a different lane. So it's going to be a little difficult to keep track of that probably, but if it's just 2v2, I think it would be fairly simple. I would highly recommend, if you have playmats, if you use playmats, just set up 3 playmats on each side. So, okay, this playmat is player A, this playmat is center lane, that playmat is player B, and you just play. At a game store, there's probably enough room for you to play like that, especially if it's not like a league night or something. For example, Hop played in the center lane will only allow the player who played it to draw 3 cards. Similarly, cards played in the center lane with the when played effects will only affect the player that played them. So there's certain ways that can work. Also, I'm sure it's going to get into it later, but each lane has their own rules, so to speak. So the rule of 1 supporter per turn, I believe, is for each lane, not for each player. So you could actually have 1 player play 3 supporters, 1 supporter in each lane. That could affect different people. So that could be extremely interesting. I think it gets into it later that you can actually play Hop for your opponent, for your other teammate. So you can play it on their side of the field, and they can draw 3 cards, sort of business. So that's why I think that's the way it's able to work. I hope I'm not confusing that with something else. If a card in the center lane has an ability that may be used once per turn, Either player may use that ability, but it may only be used once per turn. If a card in the center lane has an effect that may be used multiple times per turn, maybe something that lets you attach a bunch of energy in one turn, both players may use that ability. So that's very interesting. If you're both playing, let's say, a lightning deck, and you play something into the center lane that lets you attach as much lightning energy as much as you want, you both gain that effect. So you can use that, and it's not just your opponent. So that's pretty, or not your teammate, sorry. If a Pokemon from the center lane needs to enter a player's hand, discard pile, or lost zone, or any other zone, it may only be placed into the owner's corresponding zone. That means that when the active Pokemon from the center lane is knocked out, it must be played in its owner's discard pile. Any energy attached to it must go to their owner's discard pile. So if you have energy from two different sources on that mill Pokemon, you're going to have to separate that out. That is why it's so important to play with separate sleeves. Adjustments by card type. Pokemon may be played into a player's lane or into the center lane. The active spot in the lane must be filled before a Pokemon may be played onto the bench. Cards that would put a Pokemon onto a bench may not be played if the active spot is in that lane is not occupied. So that is very interesting. I will also say, if there's any Pokemon abilities that if you play this onto your bench, you can search for a supporter. You have to play it onto the bench. You can't play it into the new active. So you got to watch out for that stuff. But let's say you play Nest Ball in your deck. New card that's being reprinted for Scarlet and Violet. It lets you search your deck for a Pokemon and put it on your bench. The active, to play it in the center lane, you need an active Pokemon in that center lane. I hope that makes sense. Supporters. Only one supporter may be played in each lane per turn. Either player may play a supporter for the center lane, but only a single supporter may be played in the center lane. Should a supporter end the turn after being played, it will only end the turn of the lane it is played in. Okay, so this actually makes it sound like I was getting confused there about the supporter rule. You can only play it on your side and in the center lane. And if it ends your turn, it ends that lane's turn. So the other lanes can still play, but that lane is kind of done. So that's very interesting. Stadiums. Each lane may have a single stadium card. The effects of each lane stadium are only applied to the lane it is played in. So that could open up a lot of interesting lane plays and everything. Energy. Only one energy card may be attached in each lane. So you can attach 2 energy in a turn, but it's in 2 separate lanes. And once the center lane has had an energy attachment, your teammate cannot attach to that one. So that is very important to keep in mind. So adjustments to zones of play, discard pile, lost zone, hand. Each player has a discard pile, lost zone, and hand. Should a card from the center lane need to enter a discard pile, lost zone, or hand, it enters the owner's discard pile, lost zone, or hand. Any cards attached to it enter their respective owner's discard pile, lost zone, or hand. We kind of went over that already, but that is still good to know. A player is considered to have all their remaining prize cards regardless of the lane they are in. For example, 6 prize cards at the start of the game. Cards may only target the prize cards in the lane they are played. For example, Gladian may only replace a prize card for the player who played it in the lane in which it is played. So the center lane has those 6 prizes, while the outer lanes only have 3 each. If you play Gladian in the center lane, it's only the 3 that are your prizes that you can manipulate there. So that is very important to know. Cards that use prize cards of an opponent, like Buzzwole with Sledgehammer, count all of that opponent's prize cards if the attack is made in the center lane. The active team decides which opponent's prize cards are used. So that's an interesting one, where even if you're on the outside lane, and you use that attack, it counts your opponent in that same lane all of their prizes, the 3 in the center and the 3 that they normally have. So that's another good thing to keep in mind. There's a lot here. Adjustments to attacking. All 3 lanes resolve their attacks simultaneously. If an opposing lane does not have any Pokemon in it, the attack does at least 10 damage, the attacker may take a single prize card. Please note that placing damage counters directly doesn't count for this purpose. That I love. I actually love this rule, and I almost wish it was an actual TCG rule, where if your opponent doesn't have an active Pokemon, rather than just losing, if you attack into nothing, you take a prize. And as long as you keep attacking into nothing, you take a prize. I think that would be fantastic. It would extend games a little bit, but I could see some very interesting comebacks with that mechanic. And less donks. If an attacker has taken all their prize cards in a lane, they may attack and knock out opposing Pokemon, but they may not take any further prize cards. If a Pokemon in the center lane is knocked out, the active team may decide who takes the prize card and may split them if more than one prize card is earned. That's another interesting one. Once you are out of prizes, you're kind of still in the game because your teammate may not have taken enough prizes for you guys to win. And your opponent still needs to take prize cards. So just because you've taken all 6 of yours doesn't mean that you're done. You actually still have to defend against your opponent from taking too many prize cards too quickly. So it kind of keeps you in throughout the entire game, which I think is awesome. Each lane may use only a single GX attack or V-Star power per game, and just like all other attacks and effects, the GX attack or V-Star power will only affect the lane it is used in. That's pretty cool. So you kind of get multiple GX or V-Star powers in a game, which can be really fun and really change things up there. I could see like a Lugia V-Star Summoning Star bringing out 2 Archeops into the center lane, and now anyone can use those abilities and just accelerate a bunch of special energy from their deck. That would be crazy. Loss conditions. If a player would be required to draw a card and is unable to do so, they are eliminated from the game. They remove all their cards from their own lane, but leave their cards in the center lane. The opposing team may still attack their now empty lane and take prize cards, as long as they do 10 damage. If a team has no Pokemon in play in any lane, the team is eliminated. So it looks like decking out removes you from the game, sadly. I actually am kind of against that. I think decking out shouldn't remove you from the game. But yeah, I don't know. I would say talk to your other players and make a call yourself. I don't think deck out should remove you from the game because you're playing so many more cards. You're gonna be going through your deck quicker, and removing someone from the game, especially if they still have a teammate that still has a deck, just is a feel bad moment, you know. So I would kind of get rid of that. If a team has no Pokemon in play in any lane, that team is eliminated from the game. That just makes sense. If you are completely benched out throughout all 3 lanes, you're clearly not really much of a threat. Your opponent can be taking 3 prize cards a turn that you don't have a Pokemon out. That's pretty crazy. Winning the game. First team to successfully take 9 of their 12 prize cards wins. Teams win or lose together. So even if you deck out, I guess, and are removed from the game, if your teammate still wins, I guess you win with them. So that's interesting. There are particular cards that are not allowed in the team format. Dialga GX, Medicham V, Pheromosa GX. Oh, that's one of my favorites. Steven's Resolve, Togepi, and Clefty, and Igglybuff GX, unknown with the hand ability. I could definitely see some more that shouldn't be allowed, like Dialga V-Star I don't think should be allowed. Anything that lets you take extra turns I don't think should be allowed, personally. And in effect, if an effect of a card is not listed here, would cause a player to take another turn in the team format, that extra turn doesn't happen. So I guess that is how they work around that. The extra turns just don't happen. And that is the team format that I think looks really fun. Next up for the advanced formats, we have the Raid format. Raid format pits a team of players against an extremely powerful Raid boss Pokemon. Working as a team is the only path to victory in this unique and engaging way to play the Pokemon TCG. Now, I think a lot of people here might tune out because Raid format is something they introduced at the beginning of the Sword and Shield era because raids were so big for that. But this is a different raid format. This is not like, oh, you have these 3 different raid Pokemon and you gotta print out these direction cards that you'll play out and all that stuff. This is a very different format. It is still a cooperative format, 1 to 5 players. Looks like 1 player will be the raid Pokemon boss, maybe. 60 to 90 minutes. So, you first set up, the raid deck is shuffled and set face down next to the raid Pokemon. Then all players shuffle their decks and set up as in a normal game, drawing 7 cards, setting out basic Pokemon, setting up 6 prize cards, etc. Should a player need to mulligan, they show the other players their hand, then shuffle into their deck and draw 7 cards, repeating the process if necessary. The raid deck can't draw extra cards from player mulligans. The players always go first and may attack, evolve, and play supporter cards on their first turn. So it does let you guys go first and let you do quite a bit on your first turn, which I think is awesome. But you still set up those prize cards and active Pokemon with 5 bench spaces and all that stuff, just like a normal game. Gameplay. Players. The player turn is very similar to a standard game with the following changes. All players take their turn simultaneously, and all players must complete the current phase before any player may move on to the next phase of the turn. Change to the supporter rule. When a player plays a supporter card from their hand, they can apply that effect to any player. That's where I got confused with the team one and the raid one. Effect to any player on their team. For example, Jenny plays Hop, but instead of drawing 3 cards herself, she lets her teammate Lars draw 3 cards. Each turn, the players may play a total number of supporter cards equal to the total number of players. In addition, players may benefit from more than 1 supporter card per turn. That is awesome. So one person could have 4 supporters in their hand, play all 4 of them, and let everyone else use those supporters. So that would actually be really nice for those moments, like you get all 4 copies of Professor's Research in your hand, and it's like, well, this is garbage, I'm going to play 1, discard all the other ones, and all that. No, you can actually play them for your teammates as well in this raid. So I think that's really cool. Either the players or the raid deck may play a stadium card, but only 1 stadium may be in play at a time, and all players and the raid Pokemon benefit or suffer from it. If another stadium comes into play, the first stadium is discarded to its owner's discard pile. All players resolve their attacks simultaneously against the raid Pokemon, adding damage counters to the card and resolving any effects of attacks. Pokemon may not benefit from any other player attack effects during the attack phase, just like standard games. Each player may only use only 1 V-Star power per game, but that's each player using 1 V-Star power. So you can't have, as a team, 4 V-Star powers in a single game. That's nuts. Once all player attacks have been resolved, the player's turn ends and the Pokemon checkup phase begins. The raid deck. After the Pokemon checkup phase ends, the raid Pokemon recovers from all special conditions. Next, the raid deck gets to draw and resolve one at a time a number of cards equal to the number of players plus 1. Each card must be resolved before drawing the next card. This may result in the raid deck playing and resolving multiple supporter cards in a single turn. Any supporter card that affects an opponent affects all opposing players. For example, Koga's Trap would make all opposing active Pokemon confused and poisoned, and Repel would force all opposing players to switch their active Pokemon with one on their bench. That's pretty cool. Should a card be drawn that draws more cards, each additional card is drawn and resolved one at a time. Cards drawn due to other cards or effects do not count towards the total cards the raid deck should draw for a turn. Wait. For example, the raid deck draws and resolves Hop as its first card, then draws and resolves 3 cards for the effect of Hop, one at a time. Then the raid deck draws and resolves its second card for the turn. Wow! Okay. That's crazy. Oh, man. If you guys play Marvel Champions, you might know of Surge. I think it's also in other Fantasy Flight games, FFG games, where Surge, basically, if a card surges, you get another effect. That is basically what this is talking about, but so much more. If the raid deck draws a Professor's Research and it draws 7 cards, you have to resolve all 7 cards before you resolve the second card for its 1 per player effect. Holy cow. That is a lot. Oh boy. Every energy card revealed is attached to the raid Pokemon, which may result in multiple energy being attached in a single turn. All energy costs on the raid Pokemon are treated as colorless. If a Pokemon Tool card is revealed, it is attached to the raid Pokemon. If the raid Pokemon already has a Pokemon Tool attached, the first tool is discarded and the new tool is attached. If a card is drawn that requires the raid deck to make a choice, Boss's Orders, which switches one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active, the players make the choice as they wish. Okay, so they don't have to grim rule it. They don't have to make the worst choice for them. They can make the better choice, which, it's fine. You guys can play how you want. If the raid deck draws a card outside its turn, due to a player playing Marnie or Ace Trainer, players draw their cards, then the raid deck draws and resolves its cards one at a time, just like it would during its turn. Marnie and Judge are bad cards in this format, apparently. Once the raid deck has finished drawing and resolving cards for the turn, it's time to attack. If more than one attack is available with the energy attached, a die is rolled to randomly determine which attack is used. This may result in the raid Pokemon attacking making multiple GX attacks or using multiple V-Star powers in a single game. Once the attack is determined, the raid Pokemon discards energy equal to the attack cost using the fewest possible cards. Then the attack is resolved as if it attacked each player. For example, Charizard GX's Steam Artillery attack does 200 damage, so each player's active Pokemon would take 200 damage. Neither the attack nor the damage from the attack may be prevented, though the damage may be reduced. So you are not going to win by putting Miltank in the active. Oh, wow. Wow. This is intense. Now, the energy is discarded after the raid Pokemon attacks, so it does have a little bit of wiggle room, but yeah, that's still a lot. Winning the game. If a player's active Pokemon is knocked out, that player takes... If a player's active Pokemon is knocked out, that player takes the prize cards that the attacker would usually take. If the player doesn't have enough prize cards remaining, that player is removed from the game. If no players remain in the game, the raid Pokemon wins. So that is how the raid Pokemon wins, is knocking out all of the opposing Pokemon to the point where they don't have any more prize cards to take. After the raid Pokemon resolves its attack, and the total damage on it is counted for each full contribution. A full contribution is a number of damage counters equal to the number of players. Any excess damage counters stay Oh, okay. So, it looks like you remove damage counters from the raid Pokemon after it attacks equal to the number of players there are. So, if there's 4 players, the raid Pokemon heals 40 damage every turn, it seems. That kind of makes sense. It extends a little bit. Remove those damage counters and put the top card of the raid deck in the lost zone. If there are no cards in the raid deck, shuffle the discard pile to make a new raid deck and continue to put cards in the lost zone. So, you got to deck out the raid Pokemon to win or KO all the Pokemon. If the raid deck doesn't have enough cards remaining to move to the lost zone, then the raid deck is defeated and the players win. Whichever win condition happens first, either no players have prize cards remaining or the raid deck is unable to send cards to the lost zone. That is the win condition that triggers, even if the players have enough damage counters on the raid Pokemon to defeat the raid deck. At least one player must still be in the game when the damage resolves for the players to win. So, there are some examples. Like here's the recommended 60 card deck using cards from the Sword and Shield series. I'm not going to go through all that. Choose any Pokemon V Union to be the raid Pokemon. Optional rule, struggle rule. There's a Giovanni format. I'm not going to go through all this. If you guys are very interested in this, highly recommend checking out the booklet yourself. It's in the description. This video is already, holy cow, over a half hour. And we still have the Ditto draft to talk about. Oh man, I should have brought some water out here. Man, Ditto draft is the ideal way to draft the Pokemon TCG with 2 or 4 players. 4 players. Open booster packs. Pick the cards you'd like to build a deck with, then battle against your friends with a little help from Ditto. If you've played a draft before in another TCG, this is basically that. I also know some people make draft cubes for the Pokemon TCG. This is a way to do it straight from the packs, and it includes the Ditto draft rule that they talked about in the beginner format, where basically you can give one of your Pokemon the ability Evolutionary Advantage. Once during your turn, you may put a Stage 1 or Stage 2 card from your hand onto this Pokemon to evolve it. You can't use this ability during your first turn or the turn that this Pokemon is put into play. If you put a Stage 2 onto this Pokemon, your turn ends. Each Pokemon can use only one Evolutionary Advantage ability per game. Yes, it's a way to get your Stage 1s and Stage 2s out in a game where you aren't really going to be guaranteed to have those Pokemon in your deck because you're drafting. Any Pokemon can evolve into any Pokemon, as you see here, Pikachu evolving into Charizard. With this Ditto rule, just because it went Pikachu into Charizard, your turn ends. So if you go into your Stage 1, your turn doesn't end. So that is something to keep in mind. But yeah, it is a 40 card deck, 4 prize cards if you do the build and battle Ditto draft deck construction. So yes, that one is probably the easiest to explain. And again, if you want to play these, check out the link in the description. My throat's starting to hurt, so I'm going to end the video here. If you guys want further explanations on these formats, please let me know in the comments. I would love to see what format is your favorite. If you didn't watch the beginner and the intermediate videos, I highly recommend checking those out too. They also have very fun ways to play the Pokemon TCG. And like I said at the beginning of this video, this just seems like a fun way to introduce the game, or at least spice up the game for you after playing it for so many years and, you know, having the same experience over and over again. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, please leave a like and subscribe. It helps keep me motivated to make more videos for you in the future. Also, check out the other videos. There's a lot of content on this channel now. Hope you're enjoying it all. And, of course, until next time, keep playing Jank.